Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I would like you to know that what I do is simple. I don't sugarcoat anything, and I won't tell you what you want to hear, just to make you feel better about yourselves. What happens here is a woman sitting down and actually explaining how we women think, how attraction works, and why certain things men do either build desire or quietly kill it. So if that's what you came for, then you're in the right place. Now, let's talk about texting. Specifically, the kind of texting that makes a woman put her phone down, smile at the ceiling for a second, and then immediately pick it back up to reply. Because most men have no idea that kind of text even exists, let alone how to write one. Here's what actually happens on the other side of the screen. A woman gets a text from a guy she's interested in, and within about 3 seconds she's already feeling something, either intrigue or flatness. Either her attention sharpens or it doesn't. And the difference between those two outcomes almost never comes down to how good-looking he is or how much he has going for him in real life. It comes down entirely to how he uses language. The men who build real tension over text aren't doing it by being explicit. They're not sending paragraphs about what they want to do. They're doing something much more sophisticated. They're creating space. They're saying just enough to make her imagination do the rest. And her imagination, given the right prompt, will always go further than anything he could have typed. Let's get into it. 1. The dangerous proximity text. Most men think being direct is the move. And in a lot of areas of life, it is. But in the early stages of attraction, directness without restraint is actually what kills the tension before it has a chance to build. Because when everything is said out loud, there's nothing left for her to wonder about. And wondering, that specific, slightly restless state of not quite knowing but very much wanting to, is where attraction lives. The first text works because it implies everything while confirming nothing. You're lucky we aren't in the same room right now. I'm feeling impulsive. Read that again. There's nothing explicit in that sentence, nothing that could be called aggressive or over the line. But the image it creates is immediate. Her brain fills in the blank automatically, and whatever she imagines is personal to her, which makes it more potent than anything he could have spelled out directly. This is basic psychology. The mind assigns more value to things it has to work for slightly. A mystery it gets to solve. A blank it gets to fill. When a man hands over every detail, he removes the participation. And participation is what makes something feel like a shared experience rather than a one-sided broadcast. What also makes this text land is the energy behind it. The word impulsive does something specific. It suggests that he has restraint, that there's something being held back, which immediately raises the question of what that something is. Restraint reads as control, and control, in an attraction context, is genuinely compelling. It signals that he's not operating from desperation or neediness. He's operating from desire that he's choosing to manage. That combination, desire plus discipline, is one of the most attractive things a man can communicate without ever saying it directly. The version that doesn't work is the one that removes the restraint entirely. The man who texts what he's actually thinking in full graphic detail isn't building tension, he's releasing it, all at once, with nowhere for her imagination to go. The tension collapses the moment everything is visible. Leaves something in the room she hasn't entered yet. That's where the pull comes from. 2. The Restless Confession text. Desperation is the single fastest way to make attraction disappear. And the reason so many men text from a desperate place isn't because they're weak. It's because nobody ever explained to them what desire actually looks like when it's communicated correctly. Most men, when they're genuinely into a woman, make her the center of the conversation. They check in constantly. They respond immediately. They make it quietly obvious that she's the most important thing happening in their day. And on the surface, that sounds romantic. But what it actually communicates, psychologically, is that he has nothing more compelling going on, that she's not competing with anything, that his attention is fully, unconditionally available, and available in the early stages of attraction is not interesting. I was trying to be productive, but you keep invading my thoughts. It's annoying. That text does something completely different. It tells her she's on his mind, which is what she wants to know, but it frames it in a way that costs him something. He had things to do. He has a life with actual momentum in it, and she's interrupting that momentum against his better judgment. That's not neediness. That's desire with resistance built into it, and resistance is what gives desire its texture. The word annoying is doing more psychological work in that sentence than it gets credit for. It's playful, but it's also honest in a specific way. It communicates that he's not entirely comfortable with how much she's gotten into his head, which means she's gotten into his head enough to be uncomfortable. That's a compliment wrapped in mild frustration, and women read that combination immediately. It lands warmer than any straightforward, "I can't stop thinking about you," ever would, because it feels unguarded, like something he admitted rather than something he planned to say. The underlying principle is this: a man with direction, purpose, and genuine momentum in his life is inherently more attractive than one whose entire attention is available on demand. This text communicates all of that in one sentence without ever stating any of it directly. She becomes the disruption to an otherwise full life, and being someone's worthwhile disruption feels a lot better than being someone's entire world when that world appears to be otherwise empty. 3. The visual anchor text. Confidence is attractive, but there's a specific kind of confidence that operates on a completely different level, the kind that doesn't flinch at its own boldness. Most men who attempt flirty texts either stay so safe that nothing actually lands, or they swing too hard and cross a line that kills the mood entirely. The space between those two outcomes is narrower than most men realize, and navigating it successfully requires a very specific combination of wit, timing, and nerve. Get it right, and the tension spikes immediately. Get it wrong, and the conversation dies in real time. "I can't decide if I like you better in that dress or out of it." Tough call. That text lives right in the center of that narrow space. It's bold enough to create a genuine reaction. Her breath catches slightly. Her brain registers that he just went there. But it's framed with just enough lightness that it doesn't feel predatory or try hard. The tough call at the end is what does it. It keeps the energy playful rather than heavy, which is the difference between a text that makes her laugh and lean in versus one that makes her uncomfortable and pull back. What this text is really doing psychologically is forcing participation. The moment she reads it, her imagination is already in the scenario. She's visualizing it whether she intends to or not. And that involuntary participation creates a shared mental space between them, one that exists entirely in subtext, entirely unspoken, but felt by both people in the conversation. That's tension. Real tension. The kind that makes the next time they're actually in the same room carry a completely different energy. The reason most men can't pull this off isn't because they lack the words. It's because they don't fully commit to the energy behind them. A text like this only lands when it's sent without hesitation, without a follow-up explanation, without a nervous, haha, just kidding, walking it back 30 seconds later. The walk back is what kills it. It signals that he scared himself, and a man who scares himself with his own boldness communicates exactly the opposite of what the text was trying to say. Send it, leave it there, let her sit with it. 4. The warning label text. There's a counterintuitive truth about attraction that takes most men a long time to figure out. Sometimes the most powerful move is to appear to be walking away from the conversation, not ghosting, not ignoring, not manufactured coldness for the sake of seeming unbothered. Something much more precise than that. A deliberate, in-the-moment pull back that makes her suddenly, acutely aware of what she's about to not get. And that awareness, that brief flash of potential loss, does something to attraction that no amount of forward momentum ever could. I should probably stop texting you before I say something we both regret. Read that from her side of the screen for a second. He's not leaving. He's considering leaving. And the reason he's considering leaving is because the conversation has gotten to a place where his thoughts are becoming difficult to manage. That implication alone is enough to make her want to know exactly what those thoughts are. The text doesn't reveal anything. It gestures towards something just out of reach and then threatens to take even that away. This is the takeaway in its purest form. And it works because of a psychological principle that shows up consistently in human behavior. People want what they sense they might not get. The moment something feels like it could disappear, its value increases automatically. He wasn't even offering anything concrete, just the suggestion of something unspoken. And now that suggestion is the most interesting thing in her evening. What makes this text particularly well constructed is the word regret. It doesn't specify who regrets what or why. It just establishes that whatever he's thinking exists somewhere beyond the current boundary of the conversation, and that crossing that boundary would mean something. That ambiguity is intentional. Her imagination fills it in, and whatever she fills it in with is tailored perfectly to her own desires in a way no specific statement ever could be. The man who sends this text and then genuinely pulls back, who doesn't immediately follow it up with what he was going to say, is the one who gets the reply that keeps the tension alive. Because she's going to want to know, and wanting to know is exactly where he needs her to be. 5. The slow burn callback text. Every other text on this list creates tension from scratch. This one does something different. It reaches back into something that already happened between them and reframes it with an energy she wasn't expecting. And that distinction matters. Because while bold texts and playful teases create attraction, specificity creates intimacy. A man who references something real, a specific moment, a particular thing she said, a detail from a previous conversation, communicates something that no amount of charm or wit can fake. He was paying attention, not in a general, surface-level way, in the specific, deliberate way that tells a woman she actually registered with him as a person. And that feeling of being genuinely seen rather than just pursued is quietly one of the most powerful things a man can make a woman feel. That thing you said earlier, I haven't stopped thinking about it, and not in the way you probably intended. That text does several things simultaneously. It tells her she's been on his mind without making that admission feel heavy or desperate. It creates immediate curiosity. She's now mentally scrolling back through the conversation, trying to figure out exactly what he means. And the last part, not in the way you probably intended, introduces a layer of playful ambiguity that makes the whole thing land somewhere between intriguing and exciting. The genius of the callback is that it can't be faked or recycled. It requires him to have actually been present in the conversation, listening, absorbing, noticing the details that most men let pass right by. And women feel that authenticity immediately. There's a texture to a message built from something real that a generic compliment or rehearsed line simply doesn't have. She knows the difference even when she can't articulate why. What this text ultimately signals is that the attraction isn't performative. It grew out of something specific between them, a real exchange, a genuine moment, and that origin makes it feel earned rather than manufactured. Tension built on something real has a completely different weight to it than tension built on technique alone. That's the one that stays with her longest. Sexual tension over text has nothing to do with being explicit and everything to do with being precise. The men who make women put their phones down and smile aren't saying more, they're saying less, better. They're operating from confidence, not desperation, from restraint, not suppression, and from genuine presence, not performance. These 5 texts aren't scripts to copy word for word. They're frameworks for understanding what attraction actually responds to. And once a man understands that, the words come naturally. Drop a comment below and tell me which one you're going to try first. I read every single one, and I do reach out. If this gave you something useful, hit that like button, share it with a man who needs to level up his texting game, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. This channel is where women actually tell you the truth, and there's a lot more of it coming.